Good morning, 5th grade. Today we're going to be reading chapter 16. So we'll start with our warm-up activity. That's a fill-in-the-blank summary of chapters 13 through 15. Follow along as I read out loud because I'm going to tell you what to put in the blank. Samuel Reed and Homer walk back to Mr. Brewster's, and Samuel Reed travels with the runaway slaves in a wagon headed for Canada. Mr. Brewster hopes that Homer will decide to stay with him, but Homer insists that he must go find Harold. Mr. Brewster arranges for Mr. Willow to chaperone Homer to New York to find his brother Harold. Homer and Mr. Willow ride in a train for the first time to Portland. From there, they will take a steamship to New York. You can start this recording over if you missed a couple of the blanks and re-listen to it, or press pause to finish filling in the blanks. We're going to move on to our focus question. How does the narrator's point of view affect the reader's interpretation of what's happening? So, acquaintance, we have two vocabulary words. Good. Two vocabulary words. The first one is acquaintance, and that doesn't describe your close friend, but it's someone that you just met. And so you would draw a line to this picture that says true friends are hard to come by. Meaning that you have more acquaintances than you have best friends. And then the second one is prosperous, and that's a rich person. Alright, we're going to be reading chapter 16 today. Open your books to page 63 because the words on the screen are pretty small. And as we're reading, we're just going to be using our CSPS strategy. And we want to know what's Homer like, where is he, what's his problem, and how does he try to solve his problem. Sorry, not 63. I couldn't read that. Let's see, it's actually here we go. It's actually page 83. Turn to page 83. And we'll begin with Frank T. Nimbley, entirely at your service. An old cobblestone street leads to Portland Harbor, and everyone at the train station said we can't miss it. Our feet will tell us when we get there, but miss it we do. Seems that Mr. Willow has got no sense of direction than a blind kitten, and won't stop to ask along the way because he's afraid of pickpockets and thieves. A great man has entrusted me with a sum of money, he mutters to himself, checking his pockets. I dare not risk it. I've got my eyes peeled for lowlifes, figuring a city like Portland might have its own versions of smell and stink lurking about. But we don't run into anybody who fits that description. Matter of fact, no one seems to be paying us any mind as we wander through the fine neighborhoods of big houses shaded by giant elms. Oh dear, says Mr. Willow, I see I've gotten turned around again. Didn't we pass that yellow house before? Twice, I tell him. We're heading uphill. Indeed we are, he says. Are you averse to going uphill? I expect the water part of the city will be downhill, Mr. Willow. Really? He asked, as if shocked by the idea. Extraordinary. Let's go downhill for a while, I suggest. See where it takes us. Mr. Willow lets me tug him along by the sleeve. In a few minutes we get clear of the big elm trees and see the sparkling harbor laid out before us. The port is packed with ships of every size and shape. There are schooners and paddle-wheel steamships, sloops and ferry boats, and wherries, and more kinds of vessels than I ever imagined, all crowded around along a waterfront like bees trying to feed at a hive. "Oh my!" says Mr. Willow, staring in wonder. "Oh my, oh my." All right, let's stop right there. And think about Harold. What do we know about Harold so far? Well, we know he's going on this journey. Harold is traveling to New York with Mr. Willow because he's trying to find his brother Harold before Harold gets sent off in the army. So I'll say it again. Homer is traveling with Mr. Willow to New York to find Harold before Harold gets enlisted into the army. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for number 2. Number 2 asks us for the setting, and we know at the bottom, middle of page 84, we know they're in Portland and they are looking for the steamship. They're in Portland looking for the steamship. Good. All right, let's keep reading. Let's find out Homer's problem. And I'll tell you, it's pretty subtle. The author gives us some subtle hints about the problem, and then the problem becomes bigger in the next chapter. So pay attention to what Homer is thinking and feeling in the next couple pages. I'm at the bottom of page 84. Now that we can see where we're headed and keep the busy harbor in sight, we're able to cut through the side streets and down the pretty hills until finally we find the promised cobblestones under our feet and the big iron gates to the steamship lines dead ahead. The cobblestones are mobbed with people in a hurry to get somewhere, fine people in fine clothes, and workmen in rags, and police and sailors. Boys no older than me are loading carts and smoking clay pipes and looking very superior. "Look out! Make way!" When a fast carriage comes through, rattling over the stones, we have to step quickly to the side or risk getting run down. That's how we happened to make the acquaintance of beautiful Kate Nimbly and her brother Frank. In her rush to avoid the carriage and keep her skirts clear of the filthy street, Miss Nimbly somehow bumps into Mr. Willow and ends up sprawled in his long, skinny arms. "Dear me!" he exclaims, finding her there. "Oh, my!" "Thank you, kind sir," she says, fluttering a pair of soft gloves at his twitching nose. "You have saved me from ruining my dress." Before Mr. Willow can answer, I heard another voice coming up quickly behind us. "Sister, are you okay? Have you been injured?" That's her brother Frank, who looks to be about Mr. Willow's age, and dressed like a prosperous gentleman, in a finely tailored suit, a gold chain to hold his pocket watch, gleaming leather shoes, and a mustache that curls up at the ends. Once he realizes what has happened, that the skinny clergyman has saved his sister from falling down, or worse, he can't thank Mr. Willow enough. "My dear fellow," he exclaims, seizing Mr. Willow's hand and shaking it. Well done, well done. Kate, have you thanked this brave gentleman?" "Yes, brother," she says, sounding ever so sweet and meek. "I let him kiss my gloves." Mr. Willow's face gets as red as a ripe tomato, but he seems very pleased with himself. Frank looks things over, a big smile on his face, and his friendly eyes glit with humor. Kissed her gloves, did you? Why, that's practically a proposal of marriage. Mr. Willow commences to stutter and squeak like a tea kettle coming to boil, but Frank laughs and claps him on the back. "I jest, sir, a joke, and for being such a good sport, I must insist you join us for a bite to eat." "Oh, no," says Mr. Willow, blushing some more. "Can't, mustn't. We have a steamship to catch." "Really? What ship, pray tell?" "The Orion, says Mr. Willow, bound for New York." Frank and his sister look at each other and bust out laughing. "Excuse me," says Frank, when he gets his breath back. "No insult intended, but it seems we will be shipmates, for Kate and I have booked the same ship for the same destination." "Amazing!" says Mr. Willow, his jaw dropping open in wonder. "Not so very amazing," says Frank, easily slipping his arm into Mr. Willow's and steering him towards the waterfront. "Half the folks on this street are headed for steamships. But never mind, fate is fate, and now you really must join us for muffins and coffee. The good ship Orion won't leave for 2 hours yet, so there's plenty of time to get acquainted." "And who is this?" Kate says, flicking her gloves on my head. "Your servant boy? Can't say he's doing much for you." Something about the way she flicked those gloves, something about a very cool look in her beautiful gray eyes, something about Kate Nibley gets my goat. So I snatched the gloves from her hand while she's carrying them instead of wearing them anyhow, and dropped them in the gutter. We'll stop right there. On page, we're on page 87, and so let's go back to where it says something about the way she flicks her gloves, something about the very cool look in her beautiful gray eyes, something about Kate Nibley just gets my goat. So underline that sentence right here. That is Homer's problem. He is sensing that there is something about her that's not right. Homer is sensing that there's something about Kate that's not right. There's something about the way she looks and the way she's acting that makes him suspicious of her. Press pause to write down your answer for number 3, and then play when you're ready for number 4. And so the first thing Harold does to attempt to solve his problem is to let her know he does not like her. And so he takes her gloves and he throws them down into the gutter. That's the first thing he does. And then if you keep reading, she picks him up and she's like, "Oh, what an interesting boy." And then Frank introduces himself to Homer. And at the very last sentence, he says, "I've forgotten my manners. Allow me to introduce myself, Frank T. Nibley, attorney at law, justice of the peace, and entirely at your service." And then this part is really important. Underline this next part. "Here's something I didn't know, but soon found out. When a lawyer shakes your hand and smiles with just his teeth, you best run for your life." Okay, and so this is another clue about Homer's problem. And so you need to write it down here too. Homer also does not like Frank. He's very suspicious of Frank as well, but the author hasn't told us why yet. And that's one of the ways the author builds suspense, like we talked about on Tuesday, to keep the reader engaged. And then if you have time, go ahead and write your paragraph. If you don't, you're going to talk about it in the whole group lesson.